All right, I think I'll call us to order. I've got 6:35. And to start, let's go to number 2, our consideration of meeting minutes from the November meeting. Do we have any issues or concerns?
Can somebody read those out loud just in full for me?
Oh, gosh.
And translate them into Latin.
Yes, please. I didn't see anything in my long
They
read
look
of
fine
it.
to me.
I'd motion to approve.
Second.
I think we have Kyle and then Mary Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Number 3, public comment of items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items? All right. Number 4, officer nominations. As I'm sure all of you know, we have a vacancy in the vice chair role. Our vice chair, Megan Alter, is now on the city council and resigned from this commission.
Too good for us. Yeah, it is.
Promoted.
Promoted.
This will be to fill out Megan's term. So this would be a nomination to run through the June meeting. And everyone on the commission is eligible except for me. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Caleb.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations? Caleb, would you like to accept the nomination?
Yes.
All right. All in favor of Caleb as our vice chair to fill out Megan's term through June, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have a vice chair. Congratulations, Caleb.
Congratulations.
And whenever we schedule our next meeting, you'll of course be included on that. We typically meet, what, every 2 or 3 months or so? Number 5, our discussion of legacy status applications. So we received a number of applications for legacy status, for legacy agency status in the aid to agencies process. This is obviously a new thing for us. You know, we've not had a process to add legacy agencies, so we had a discussion at our last meeting as to what that might look like. You know, what the process would look like, how we should go about evaluating the applications, and we received 5. I mean, since this is the first time we've done this, we have a bit of a, I mean, we get to set the process for how the discussion goes. Heading in, my thought is that we should probably discuss the applications one at a time, that would be the fairest process for evaluating each one. And based on our notes from the last meeting, I did sketch out a few criteria that we were looking for in applicants. And so I was going to go through those, say a word or two about them, and then if I miss anything, please let me know.
Matt, can I real quick?
Yeah.
I just do want to point out, I called Brianna earlier today because as part of my prep work, I was reading through that 5-year comprehensive plan, the steps 2025. And the only thing that, and I may have dismissed it, we may have discussed it, I didn't see in the minutes that we actually discussed the wording. In that plan, it does very specifically say on page 150 that no new applicants would be considered until the next 5-year plan. And it says it on page 150 that legacy agencies, that the ability to apply for legacy agencies or be included on the next, as part of the next legacy agencies list would not be done until the next comprehensive plan. So I think it's important for us to have a process for applications, but also, after reading that, I thought to myself, well, it's kind of weird that, I mean, I felt like I missed that there is actually in the plan, the wording that that new agencies would not be included or considered until the next comprehensive plan.
And that's why it would require an amendment.
A
and
change,
process,
right.
Is it, does it specify whether we allow them to become an agency without funding, or is that for funding? It just said no new agency or no new funding.
No, I can't pull it up, but it's at the it's on page 150 under the list of current agencies, and it specifically says that, I'd have to read the wording, but I mean, it's very clear that it says that consideration of being a legacy agency and applications would not be considered until the next comprehensive plan, which would put it in that, whatever, the 2025. So I guess I didn't feel like that was clear. I thought that it was more fluid or more vague when we talked about it at the November meeting, that there was this concept that, well, anybody could apply anytime. And it feels like people can apply anytime. There's not a clarification that they can't. It's just that we can't consider actually adding them until the 5-year comprehensive plan is done again, unless, like Mary Ann said, we're just going to make that as part of the amendment now. And that's a decision we can make. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that was something that kind of hit me, because I didn't feel like we had actually talked about the wording in the current comprehensive plan last time.
Do you have the wording? I mean, my understanding of it was that
Let me see if I can find it real quick.
The plan was done every certain number of years, and the agencies were listed in the plan. I didn't know it went further than that. And
You don't have that, Bree, do you?
I don't.
Stop. Is there an easy way to find that on the website? City steps?
Yeah, I can probably pull it up.
We already knew that we were going to have to make a significant change and go to council, I'm assuming, right? We proposed the change. Is that just an extension? I mean,
well, we knew we'd have to change the plan since the agencies are listed there.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful for staff to go over the required steps to allow this, and then also sort of a timeline? Kyle,
Sorry,
that'd be helpful.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I just wanted to mention it because I just wonder if we're going to consider whether that, for those agencies that were part of that comprehensive plan at the time, that were under the impression they would have 5 years of being able to set their budgets, you know, is that an issue of what we're considering now, where I guess the rules were put out there. We're not going to consider new legacy agencies for 5 years. Yeah, I'm just trying to find it, and maybe I'm reading the verbiage completely wrong.
I
just
wasn't
can't.
aware that was listed as a rule, I guess.
When I looked at it earlier, I'm positive I was like, oh, it's right there. I found it. Now I can't find it. I can't find the actual steps plan on the City of Iowa City. Is it under comprehensive plan?
That's the consolidated plan,
Is that the one?
city steps.
That's not the one then.
No.
Okay. If I'm at city government and I wanted to find the steps plan,
icgov.org/action plan will have it.
/action plan.
Yeah, so I mean, at least what this is a list of the agencies, and a note that they're the only ones that would be allowed to apply for legacy agency funding, of course, which is just what a legacy agency is. 2-year cycles, stable funding. I mean, there's nothing here about.
Here, the city steps, 2025.
It says that they will be reevaluated with each consolidated plan. It doesn't say that they won't be reevaluated when there is not a consolidated plan.
Okay. I mean, the way I read that was it was not going to be, You're looking at page 150, that same page?
Yeah, it's the last sentence on the page.
Yeah.
Basically, it says that, that there'll be a consolidated plan in such a time increment, and that the agencies will be reevaluated at that time. So this process would be,
I guess this is it says applications will be for a 2-year cycle and funding amounts will be based, and then it says the priorities and agencies allowed to apply will be reevaluated with each new consolidated plan
Right.
to address changing priorities or gaps of service.
right.
So to me, the agencies allowed to apply will be reevaluated with each new consolidated plan implies that allowing agencies to apply would only be done every 5 years.
It doesn't say, well, I mean,
That's just the way I read it, and that's why I was,
it says that they will be reevaluated every 5 years. What we're saying is that,
I think, for me, it was the agencies allowed to apply, was the part
I
that got
see.
me, is that we're only reevaluating which agencies are allowed to apply every 5 years, and we haven't gotten to that 5-year, we haven't reached that 5-year mark where we would be in a position to reevaluate which agencies are allowed to apply. That was the part that got me. So, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm okay with us making that change if we want to make that change. We talked a lot about fairness to existing legacy agencies last time. I just thought it was important for us to have that in our minds. But
Well, Kyle, I think there's a lot of discussion that we've got to have about, I mean, if you look at the hypothetical scenario for legacy agency funding for adding new agencies, if we even add one tonight, it's going to decrease increases to the existing agencies. And there are some proposed changes I want to look at. So I'm hoping that we can dig into this whole process and maybe not tonight. I'm not going to be here till midnight, but we can establish the time that we need in whatever way to dig into this process, to come up with the process, because I think that it's still, as last month or 2 months ago, we were talking about how do we add existing agencies. We have to establish a process, and one where I guess I'd like to see us funding agencies that solve certain kinds of problems in our community, not necessarily just, the same agencies year after year after year. It doesn't mean that I don't want continued funding, but I think that there are some huge problems in our community where in which we should be directing our funding. So I'm just hoping we can open it up and have a good discussion about how we can propose some changes, and if that has to go to city council, that's fine. So.
yeah, and I mean, I think for the most part, we did lay out a pretty good process at the last meeting. So I wanted to summarize that at the start and see if there was anything anyone wanted to add to that. This is mostly based on our notes that we had from the previous meeting. So one of the things I pulled from that is that we wanted to see a pipeline for agency funding. The one part of it is that an agency starts with emerging funds, applies for that at least once, and then becomes a legacy agency later. Another one is that we discussed that an agency should exist for some number of years before getting to legacy status. We had a bit of disagreement or different ideas on how many years that would be. A few people said something in the 4 or 5 year range. I think a few people had more like the 7 to 10 year range in mind. A third one is we asked for a number of financial documents and other disclosure statements, so a review of those. And a fourth one that I pulled out of there, broadly speaking, would be fit with the legacy agency program. So the meeting of the city's public service priorities, adding something novel to the legacy agency list, so doing something that is not merely duplicating, other services. And the idea that the legacy agency status would be the best avenue for funding. So, we have a variety of other funding sources that we look at as a commission. So one question is legacy agency status the best way to fund this agency, or should they apply for other types of funds? And then, another thing would just be what you raised, Becky. We have to look at the larger landscape of the legacy agencies and how does it impact the other ones, and that's what that scenario map was about. Those were the main things I pulled out of our notes from last time, but was there anything else that I missed or that we wanted to add, or?
Well, Mary Ann, I'm going to look at you. One of the issues that you raised last time was why do the names of the agency have to be listed in the city staff? I guess I'd rather look at certain kinds of issues that need to be. Funding from the city, to me, should solve some sort of problem, whether it's housing or it's food insecurity, or we should be providing health or medical services, or we should be providing services for youth. And then I think it gets easier for us to take a look at the agencies and how their programs fit what we want to see happen in the community. So ultimately, I know it's not going to happen tomorrow or even by next month, but I'd like to get to a process where we're moving towards, really saying these are the issues that we want to really tackle with our agency legacy money. If that makes sense. Okay.
I think we should just dig into the applications, go through them one by one.
So are we going to be allowed to ask the agencies questions?
Yeah, we should talk a little bit about that. I believe we invited agencies or agency representatives here, but we did not invite anyone to give a presentation or to sit a Q&A or
Right.
anything like that. If we have some sort of pressing question and it would be highly relevant to anyone's vote, I wouldn't object to asking it, but I don't know that we should routinely just invite representatives up for a statement or anything like that. I don't think that's needed. But if any of you find yourself, you've got some lack of clarity that you want to solve and it's really going to determine your vote, then we're not banned from doing that, are we?
No, I think Q&A is fine. Do you think I should shut it off?
Is it a particular mic that's causing that sound, or?
I'm honestly not sure. Because the projector, I think, might be causing feedback too.
Well, I think we'll wait a moment on that.
Is that less painful?
Did you kill the mics?
I think it killed all of them. I don't know.
It worked too well to be something other than killing the mics.
Yeah.
So my list that I've got here has the Written Justice as the first application that I.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You're going to have to speak up if we're not going to use mics.
All right. So we've got Center for Worker Justice as the first application.
Before questions, do you have any grading system to grade these applications?
We don't have this preset rubric. It's the first time we've done this sort of evaluation. And I think Becky was raising the point that we may want to sketch something out in the future, something more detailed. But we don't have anything.
Yeah, since 2-point grading system and how many applications that you should accept every cycle, I think that would make our jobs easier. Now we have 5 applications, but we don't know how many applications we should accept as legislative organization. Accept all of one, accept one, and based on what?
Well, in terms of what impact would be had by accepting different numbers of applicants, there is a note in our packet where that's sketched out, how that would, one scenario about how that might impact the other agencies.
My hope is that if we decide to accept, 2 or 3 of these agencies as legacy agencies, then we'll go to city council and request a bigger pot of money. That's what I'm hoping that we do.
Yeah, and that's an option that we've discussed, and it seems like it would be a good idea.
There's nothing that says that we can't create a proposal process, right? I mean, or a process where we're recommending a budgeted amount to the city for funding. And it can either be approved or not approved, but we could recommend an increase to the package, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And we can also recommend, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that we don't want any of the current legacy agencies to get any kind of cut. Right. So that would really be up to the council. Well,
We can recommend anything we want.
yeah.
There wasn't a single criteria that I laid out earlier that the Center for Work and Justice didn't far surpass, in my view. That's my comment on the application.
Can you speak to the mic, please?
Unfortunately, there's.
You're not working, so.
Just to press about this.
I'll give it my best shot. So as far as the Center for Work and Justice application is concerned, I sketched out a few things that I took from the last meeting notes, and by all of those criteria I laid out, it absolutely scores an A+ on. I mean, I can't find a single criteria that I was looking for in these applications. This application wasn't top one. And
Well, I have a couple of questions. Mazadir, would you be the person that's going to answer?
Yeah, we probably.
Okay. I think this is a unique agency providing a unique service. One of the things I do know, though, is that in the past couple of years, Center for Work and Justice has had some financial difficulties. And I'm wondering if the organization has a strategic plan and you're operating from a strategic plan, which kind of helps you. I don't know why those financial difficulties have happened, if you're taking on too much, or if you could give me some idea of how those financial difficulties have occurred in the organization, or what you're doing to, make an impact so that your financial health of the organization looks a little bit more stable.
I can start with that and also say, I don't know what you mean, like we had that financial difficulty. We lost one of our biggest funder, which is the CCHD, the campaign, what's that? The Catholic Campaign for Human Development.
Okay.
So, they was giving us, they've been funding us from day one. But their fund will go only for 6 years. And you have to have a waiting period of 2 years so you can come back again. And what happened is even they give it to us for 7 years instead of 6 years. But after that they stop it and we have to wait, and now we're waiting. Next year we're starting coming back. During this time we start looking for another funder to fund our work, and we did. So I can say we did not really struggle. We lost our gala too, like due to COVID-19. Every year our gala may be bring us like net of over $7,000, like every year, and we lost that because we don't do it. We don't do gathering since like 2020. Last year, like 2 years now, we don't have that fund. But we started really looking for another funder to fund us with that time. I don't think we struggled, but we did not like really, reduce our work. We have even, during 2020, we started doing something outside our mission due to the crisis of COVID-19.
Right. I think that's actually an excellent response for me, anyway, because I do think loss of funding can precipitate a crisis. And the reason, for you to understand, the reason why I'm asking is, I want to make sure that we're investing the city's money wisely, and that the agency, when funded through this process, does not have, situations that create a crisis and possible closure of an agency, something like that. Let's see. So, in terms of services, if you could think ahead, if you were allowed to be, if we approved your application to be a legacy agency, how would you classify under city steps the work that you do?
I think we are really doing a unique service that another organization in the area is not providing by any means. I mean our main mission. Even though like 2020, all the organizations that are doing like financial aid and assistance, and we doing that also, but that is not our mission. Our mission was not a charity organization at all. Our mission to empower low-wage workers to organize our issue in the community that pays them and make them like really solve those problems. And that's what we've been doing. And I think just like when we creating the first community ID in the county, that's make our community safer, because you can identify everyone who lives here. And this means everybody has something to identify themselves. They are not going to scared to go and report on crime. So, because before, if you don't have, you cannot identify yourself, you cannot go and report a crime. And this is helping improve the safety in the community. And also, like helping people, raising the minimum wage in the county to 1010, even though the legislation took it out, but this is also improving the economy in the area. Like also we do wage theft cases. We recover over today, as of today, we recover over $180,000 for the people that otherwise would be lost. This is improving the economy. I mean, economic development, economic development. So, all these kind of services, no other organization is doing it. The state of Iowa have only one person to investigate wage theft in the whole 99 county. Sometimes when I receive somebody complain about wage theft, I ask them, how do you know about this? They said they called the Des Moines Department of Labor and they asked them to go to the Center for Work and Justice. So they come to us. We just really doing a unique services. We speak like we have translated for all the language. The immigrants and low-income people, they came to us, and sometimes we refer them to the different organizations, like the food bank, shelter house, like all those. We refer people to them, and we help them translate. We fill out the application for them because the application is in English. We help them fill it out so they can go to another organization. And just a lot of immigrant and low-income people, they look at the center as a safe hub, so they come to us and we do a lot of service for them. We do the service for justice. You cannot imagine. We get stories that nobody else can solve this. Though we go do that. Immigration. We help people also with immigration, especially on the community people. We become with the financial assistance, and now so far with the help of another organization, of course, in the area, and we created this program during 2020 to help people apply for Iowa Financial Authority, like Iowa Financial Authority, and so far we helped over 500 people stay in their house and pay their rent. We did all this kind of really, I I just believe that nobody else is doing the service that we do, but maybe we share some like something due to the crisis only. But before the crisis, we're doing a unique service. No other organization is doing wake test. No other organization is helping people fill out education. No other organization did education for like kind of know your right training every month about the school, about your right in the work. We do like safety training for meat-packing workers, especially during COVID-19. OSHA training for them, so and we do this in different languages: French, Arabic, English, and Spanish. No other like organization does that, and I just think that we are not duplicating services, and I just what I really believe.
Well, thank you for that, but I think what Becky was asking is, and
You can go now. Yeah, what you said.
pandemic has a lot of services, I understand that, but does this CWJ have a strategic plan that the board has approved?
Yes. We do have a strategic plan. Every year we come and see what our priority for this year. We have this year at least we have forest view as a very high priority. Forest view mobile home. I don't know if everybody know about that. We want to be here.
What is it, what is it called?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We have forest view, continue except campaign. No, I just don't have it in front of me, but the thing on the strategic plan is continue except campaign because that's ongoing campaign, every year. It do five workshops for meat-packing workers, for workers in general to continue to educate them about wakes up. And also, we have also now computer classes and English classes for women. We're going to continue our tutoring for immigrants, kids. We're going to start it even if it's going to be Zoom due to the pandemic. We will continue because we stopped it last year. We did not have it last year due to the pandemic. And do you remember what was it? Because I don't remember all of them. But if you want me to provide with our strategic planning, we can. But every year the board, approve their strategic plan. Yeah.
And we also try to develop a strategic plan based upon member meetings and what members of the CWJ inform us about what they're doing, what services they would like us to provide, or what things they would like us to improve upon.
Yeah, because we are member-based services, we have monthly meeting, and each time they come up with unique issue that we have to come in. If we have the capacity for it in the same time, and this is urgent, we go for it. Otherwise, we put it on the strategic plan for the next year.
So, essentially, when I was looking through these applications, I had my few things that I was looking for that I pulled out of the last meeting. With this one, clearly the pipeline is in place. CWJ had emerging agency funding last year. It was clearly the best application that we saw last year. It's been around about 10 years, so it passed everyone's test for how long it's been around. I personally had no issues with the disclosure documents, so Becky, you had a question about that. And I thought the fit here was fantastic. The things like the wage theft campaign are clearly new. They clearly add something to what the legacy agencies are doing, and there's a lot of evidence there working with other groups. And CWJ is also not really appropriate for our other funding areas in a lot of cases. So this would be the way that we would fund CWJ. We wouldn't do it typically through CDBG or home or things like that. So that was my approach to this. Those are my things I was looking for. CWJ did all of those things extremely well, so I saw this as just an obvious yes. I think that was kind of the way I looked at it. And that's why I don't have a question.
Actually, I'm a yes also, although I did have questions. I I think it's a unique organization. I spent a lot of time yesterday and today going through all the applications. The last application the legacy agencies put forth, and I classified the organizations according to the services they provide. And so this is kind of a unique service. Almost reminds me of in the 60s and 70s, minority communities had community enablers, which really worked on working with the needs of that minority community, whether it was police brutality or they didn't call it food insecurity, 50 years ago, 45, a long time ago. But that's, CWJ in some ways has that element of, there's a fluidity about it that probably has to remain in order to meet the needs of its members. And as Charlie mentioned, that it looks like your board, you have a member board, so there are a lot of individuals who are residents of the various segments of the community that are members of your boards. And so that's why I think that maybe it might be a little bit more fluid and interesting organization. And a long-range strategic plan might be something that you can get to, but maybe not right now. So yeah, it's a yes for me, but I had questions. I thought it was a real positive application.
Do we have any other thoughts or comments?
No, this is one of the two applications that I also felt qualified under what I had in mind as a legacy agency. They've been in place 10 years. As you said, they fill the gaps that we generally can't fill through CDBG and home. I think for me it still comes back to, is it right to approve them now, or is it right to approve them on that 5-year plan? But yeah, if we were looking at this just as, is this a emerging agency that deserves to make that step up? I do think this is, yes, yeah, that's where I'm at.
One thing I noticed on the application is just CWJ, they are doing too much work. For example, helping immigrants, entrepreneurs, and doing medical clinics, and water registration. How do you manage all these jobs? How do you organize your volunteers?
To be honest, I just feel like this is a lot of work that we do for 2 full-time, staff. But we are in the process of hiring one more staff, and we apply for funding. If we receive that fund, of course, we're going to hire an additional staff. But we've been doing all this with really help of intern from the University of Iowa. Every year we just be sure to post in their websites like the Handshake, asking for volunteer and intern. So every year we have at least 3 interns from the University of Iowa. In fact, just yesterday I have one who started and she have 2 hours a week to work and get credit from the University of Iowa through program called program, which is that she work with us for 22 hours a week and get credit for that. So those kind of volunteer is really helpful for CWJ. Besides, I get a student from Kirkwood Community College, referred from Kirkwood Center for High Schooler. Kirkwood Community always they send me some high schoolers to have some volunteer time with us. And also we get City High, West High, and a student from the University of Iowa beside volunteer. We saw really decrease on volunteer last year due to COVID-19. Maybe people don't put the ad in person like before. We are one of the only organizations that remain open during 2020. We did not close our door and no single day. And this is because we know that immigrants like one-to-one services. That's why we remain open, so people can still come and ask for their needs. That's one of the things we've been doing. It is a lot, but we're really managing our volunteering very, very good. There are a lot of people volunteering with us.
Do we have any other thoughts on this discussion, or shall we take a vote?
What are we voting on?
I mean, are we voting right now on
We're voting on the
whether to
acceptance.
make it a legacy agency?
Yep, we have the applications in front of us, and we're voting yes or no on it.
But it depended upon whether or not we can get the amendment to the plan, right? They can't automatically be a legacy agency.
Yeah, we
That's what I was
have,
asking before, because it has to, you have to have a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan, which is a process, right?
yeah, so if HTDC approves agencies tonight for legacy status, we would start that process probably this spring. We would
Okay.
go through the formal process. And that would go, there's a 30-day public comment period, and then it gets approved by HTDC, and then it goes to council for approval.
So that's the process, but the vote would be on
Well,
the
yeah,
application.
but it seems, well, okay.
I will make the motion to include Center for Work and Justice in our recommendation to be added as a legacy agency.
I don't want to be the proceduralist here because I hate proceduralism, but we don't need a motion here, right? This is just
Do
these
we?
are applications, and we have to vote them up or down, right?
I think it'd be good to have one at the end once you determine, once you go through all 5.
So we should probably take something like an informal vote here, and then at the end, we should do the motion.
That work? I think that'd be good.
Okay. Well, let's take an
Informally,
informal
yes.
yes or no. So, Alford, yes.
Aye.
Yep.
Aye. Any opposed? So we have next Dream City.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any comments or discussion on the application from Dream City, formerly the Dream Center?
I do also think it is a unique program.
What did you say?
I think it's a unique program.
Yeah, I actually didn't really have any questions, just a comment that again, I think the number of years they spent in nonprofits, I would know the services of all the legacy agencies a little bit more better than I did, but I didn't. And I was surprised to find that, I thought that UAY actually would have been an agency to compare the city to, but it's not. Really, the kinds of services, the closest that we have, we only have one, and that's Big Brother, Big Sister. So I really support Dream City becoming a legacy agency.
I've had some very similar things to say about the last application. I mean, we're right around 9 or 10 years in existence. Things that aren't considered really unique, but also work well with other agencies. And legacy agency status is, I think, the best way to fund this organization. I don't think we'll be using other HCDC funds in very many cases. So essentially the same comment as Becky.
I'm at the 10-year block for me. I think there's got to be a point for me where a legacy is a legacy after at least a decade of showing continued feasibility. So this is one of the ones that I'm not going to be a yes on, but it's only just because that's my minimum requirement in my head for this. So
But they were founded in 2012. I mean, they're not quite.
they can come back later this year, next year. I mean, they're at 9.
So you're a hard 10 on that.
I am 10. Yeah.
I actually think that Dream City, one of the big yeses for me is it really helps add a program that serves a large number of minorities, and I think that's important. And again, the fact that the only agency providing similar services that we have is Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I'm strongly supporting Dream City to become a legacy agency.
Do we have any other comments before we take the initial vote here? Okay, all in favor of the application, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say aye.
Just me.
So 5-1. Our third application that I have listed here is from Houses and Homes. So what comments do we have on the Houses and Homes application?
The one question I had is actually more for staff is, are there other dollars? I know they reduce waste in the city. Are there other dollars? I'm not saying I'm not going to support them. I'm not even coming close to that because I support this agency too. But I'm wondering if there are other dollars within the city, and because they do reduce waste and that reduce cost. That's my question.
There's the sustainability funds, but those are usually in short supply. Yeah, we have climate action funds. Houses and Homes may have taken advantage of that grant in the past before, I'm not sure, but it's kind of hard for us to speak on other funding pools that we don't administer.
I guess I was looking at funds that we could grab to add to, so this is their allocation, and some of it comes from the agency's pot, and some of it comes from, sustainability, some sort of other fund, whether it's reducing landfill or something like that. Huh?
Like landfill.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it would be a community foundation, if they're going to fund $10,000, they might do $5,000 from this donor fund and $5,000 from this donor fund. And that's just my question is, it seems to me that they do save the city a lot of money, and they reduce waste, which is really important, in addition to doing the services that they do. But, I don't know, that's just a question that I have that maybe you guys can think about. Because we're not in a funding point for a long time.
And the council could look at that, right? The council could look at that in the budget.
Sure. Yeah.
I know this is another unique service. Is there somebody from Houses and Homes here? Hi. One of the questions that I had was if you track unmet need. So, great information in the application, by the way. In terms of your outcomes, the kinds of survey results that you have, I thought that was really good information. I remember reading someplace, and I tried to pull all my questions forward. I just had a question about unmet need. Do you have, let's say, I can't remember how many homes you furnished in this past year, but do you have another column of those that you couldn't do because of lack of volunteers, lack of resources, something like that?
The only times that we weren't able to meet the need or when we couldn't reach somebody, I don't think there's anybody referred to us that we didn't get to in our, as efficiently as we could.
Okay. And then another question Actually, I'm sorry, yes.
Jason, just to add a point, so one thing we had to learn this year with dealing with the end of, not the end, COVID and you know, eviction moratorium, I think, is that we had enormous surges.
Sure.
And so we really had to sort of adapt quickly to what do you do when you have a steady flow, but no, now you have school coming back, you have, you know, when households, we have to sort of come up with processes to do that quickly. And so we really pulled in new resources and figured out new ways to do it.
So I think it's more of a timeliness issue than it is not serving them. You know, it's just like we're eager to get people furnished and sleeping in bed, and sometimes having to wait, you know, more than our deadline is within 2 weeks. Making that longer is, you know, painful.
Yes.
And I would say there is also some amount of unmet need with agencies who've asked to become referral agencies that we haven't been able to accommodate yet. So I think there is need out there, but as far as the referrals that we actually receive.
And so the reason why you haven't been able to meet the needs of the agencies who've asked is what? Man hours, person hours, or what?
I think just, yes.
Yeah.
The amount of staff we have and the amount of time, and then the process we want to go through with the agencies to make sure they understand our process and.
So you have like a stockpile of furniture somewhere now?
We have about a 10,000 square foot warehouse full of furniture.
It's full of furniture now?
Yes.
I mean, not always full, but
It's full today. It's full in and out, tied sort of way. Donations come in, we furnish homes, and it goes out. It's not really a stockpile, it's a supply.
I guess the other question that I had is, and I hope I phrase this right. Do you have, how do you prioritize the families, and what constitutes a family to you?
So we actually serve households. So we have quite a few individual single people, and we used to have more of a priority. Our priority is always getting beds to people. So that changes a little, but since we were able to hire staff and hire volunteer coordinators to increase our volunteers, we're able to kind of just go through the list in the order that they were. And, you know, we can do, depending on a lot of things, between 6 and like 12 deliveries in one day. So we're able to cycle through the list.
That answered my question. Yeah. And that was it for my question.
No, I found that helpful too. I mean, when I was first looking at this application, there were two possible reservations I had. One was around possible funding sources, of whether there would be an alternative funding source for this agency. Though after listening to a little discussion, I see the case for legacy agency status in a way that I didn't at first. The other reservation was that it's an organization founded in 2018 with this. There was part of my brain that said, you know, this is a great application for 4 years from now, or something like that. I wasn't quite at the 10-year mark on that, on the year requirement, though. I was probably around the 7 or 8 year mark, and so I had that reservation, but still have that reservation, and I'm still not sure what how I want to go.
I think for me, the concerns that I had about the prioritizing in households, you know, I wanted to make sure that a one-person household was, you know, when they get to the top of the list that they're served, because I think that's important. But it is I think it's a high priority in our community, and it's not the first time the service has been. I mean, they kind of picked up the old furniture project and revived it. And, you know, I think they, I'm just going to say, blew into it, blew the kind of organization that it needed. And you know, I actually think they're doing really well. Yeah, I'm supporting this application too.
And I might add that the city supported the furniture project with $28,000 for a number of years. So there is some precedent in service that the city has supported this in the past, and it was a huge gap. And the furniture project just kind of, fell apart because it was a model that didn't work really well.
If you wanted to compare another organization, I mean, this is kind of like, there's food rescue and this is furniture rescue. They're really similar kinds of things, and table to table, they have, I don't know, maybe about 3 times the number. I can't remember how many partner agencies they have that they deliver to, and no doubt that Housing to Homes will grow into that, but can food pantries exist without an agency, a rescue agency? Sure. But it's not as efficient, and it's going to be more costly in the long run because, they aren't that kind of, they're a clearinghouse for taking the donations and then storing them and then getting them out to folks. So I'm just not as concerned about, I know that was a big thing to me, is new agencies have this, the failure rate is higher with a newer organization. But I think this one kind of is not the same for me. I gotta tell you, the application itself was number one, although the 3 agencies so far have all, been pretty easy.
Yes. I love the idea of there being a sort of housing adjacent agency that does a easily overlooked component of housing.
That's where I kind of considered them, and I looked at the kinds of services. I kind of think that they're kind of a wraparound service in housing. It's a housing related type of.
How many paid staff do you have?
Paid staff, we have the equivalent of 3 full-time. We have 1 full-time and then 5 part-time that their hours add up to 2. And I just want to respectfully submit if 10 years was the mark that was the cutoff for a legacy agency, that would have been good to know before we concluded the application.
Can you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
I said if 10 years was the marker, that you're not a legacy, then that would...
This is my personal work.
Oh, that's just him.
But I mean, that would be something that seems like that should have been laid out.
Oh, yeah.
There's no hard marker in terms of years. There was a discussion at the last meeting where we were setting criteria, and some people expressed 4 or 5 years, some people expressed 7 to 10 years, but there's no hard marker as of yet.
And we do have a strategic plan, and we do have a cash reserve if we do lose a grant or lose a funding source, we have something to go to. So I feel like there's some stability there that we work into the overall organization.
I would agree. I think the paper, they look really good, and I know the service too, so.
And I will say from a personal standpoint, this is the one organization that I put the most of my own personal money. I absolutely support 100% the work they do, and my pocketbook has shown that. But yeah, I think there's got to be a point where we have to consider what a legacy agency is and who has put in the time, and that's just where I come from on it. So,
do we have any other thoughts or comments?
Even though this application existed on 2018, but they are doing an incredible job by the uniqueness of their job and the volume of the people who serve. But I have a question. Do you accept the application directly in your organization or only through referral agencies?
It's through referral with agencies. So how do we get?
Did everyone hear the question?
No.
I think
Let me
it's
say the question again.
Sorry.
Do you accept this application directly from your agency or through all the referral?
Yeah. So it is through an agency, but if someone calls us directly, we refer them to someone who can help them. So it's typically Johnson County Social Services that will be a referring agency for someone who's in involved with case management.
The Johnson County Social Services General Assistance sort of widened their eligibility requirements last year, and so anybody who's called us has been able to go to them and get a referral. And we have a referral so that somebody who's working directly with a person can assess the need, and it seems to work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's
And also we are, as we have Mr. Johnson, we are a referring agency, so, you know, if you have somebody send them my way, I will
Okay, let's move to a vote. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And any opposed, say aye.
Aye.
5-1. The next application I have is from Successful Living. It only meets the founding requirements, I believe 1998, I think is the year. I believe I was a teenager.
I don't have any questions. I have a comment.
I
You have a question? Okay.
I have a question for Ron. So you've gotten home funds in the past, right?
Yeah, yes.
And then, do you incorporate a developer fee in that? In
We have
this
that.
project?
No, we haven't in the past.
Because that's really that's an administrative fee.
Yeah, I know we can, but we just wanted to keep our budgets. I mean, we just chose to do that too.
But that would be another way, that wouldn't have to come from this pot of money, it could come from the home funds.
I understand that, right? I mean, it's a.
Same with housing trust fund, right? The housing trust fund would allow you to a developer fee.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty small amount comparatively, generally speaking, but you're right, there is some funds we draw from that.
But it's more than, but with emergency, you got $5,000. Emerging, you got $5,000, right?
Right?
Yeah.
I think it was,
Yeah, so.
I mean, I certainly don't have any reservations in terms of when the org was founded. The mission is great. I think the city priorities is great. If I have a reservation, it would be the appropriateness of legacy agency status specifically, as opposed to other sources of funding. That would be where my reservation here would be.
I have no doubt that there's always a need for funds. I believe that ECR should be supporting some of these services, housing for chronic mental illness. So I don't think that this is the type of service that we want to add to agency legacy status. I would encourage them to put their administrative fees, allow for that, during the other home application process. So I'm going to be a no on this one.
Sorry, I gotta be no too. I mean,
I know.
is it because of that administration fee that we didn't charge on other grants, or is that?
No, but I think that's where we should be doing that. But I just do not believe that this is the type of service that should be a legacy agency. I think the funding should be coming from ECR, to tell you the truth. Mental health dollars is where it should be coming from. Because we have another one coming up. We have a number of agencies that provide this type of service come forward. I don't think that's what our legacy money should be used for. So that's my opinion. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
We have used funds, and have in the last year, used funds from ECR. I mean, and with frequency, I would say, too. In fact, I think our agency utilizes ECR funds, or CARES Act funds, more than any other agency in the county, and maybe even the region, the ECR region. So, I mean, we have pursued everything we could as far as that goes.
I believe you. I mean, I know, I went to all those regional meetings, I know about ECR, okay? You may not be getting the dollars, except in some special funding pots that exist. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I believe that's where the funding should come from, is in those regional dollars. So I just think it's too much to add into this.
Well, this is always a hard process when you're up against this kind of thing, because you know I support what you do.
Right.
It's just, there's other pots, I think.
Any other thought? I mean, I generally agree with, I would say the legacy agency status is one of the best source of funding. If I have no other comments or questions, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of this application, say aye. Aye. And all opposed? I believe we have 1-5. The final application is from Unlimited Abilities.
Is there somebody here from?
I sort of feel the same way about this that I do
Yeah.
about successful living.
But I just didn't want to speak about them. I just wanted to know who was here. I have the same feelings. It's a similar organization, serving much the same type of population of folks. Although it's newer, successful living I think has a much longer history in Iowa City. But I'm a no on this one too, because I think that the money for operation costs, if needed, should be coming through mental health dollars from the region. That's what I believe.
Broadly speaking, I had source of proper source of funds reservations. I had reservations about legacy status for an agency that's 5 years old. I was willing to be talked out of that for one application. So I suppose if I have a criterion here, it's not, I wouldn't vote no for an organization solely because of only being founded 5 years ago, but if there's anything else, any other kind of reservation, I would be inclined to vote no. And I think I have another reservation here. What other thoughts or comments do you have?
I found one issue on the application. On the question, if the applicant currently in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws, and the answer was currently in litigation. And that's drawn my attention. If they can elaborate more on this. Can you elaborate more on the question is, if the application currently in compliance with all federal, state, and local laws, and the answer wasn't yes.
Well, maybe it was a mistake, but yes, we comply with all the current regulation.
Yeah, the answer was currently in litigation.
Well, maybe it was a mistake from the application.
I guess I have to go send my office under successful.
If you give us a chance, we will change the answer, but yes, we comply with all the regulation.
we move on to a vote, or do we have any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, say aye. And any opposed, say aye.
Aye.
So I believe in effect what we need now is some wise parliamentarian on there to make a motion that would choose some number of these applications and send them to the next stages in the journey for the consolidated plan. So, I mean, do we really just need a blanket approval? Is there anything else we need?
That's fine. You could just say you recommend the first 3 agencies for legacy status.
Yeah, so for my tally here, we have 3 agencies that we recommended, 2 we did not. 2 we recommended by a vote of 5 to 1, 1 we recommended by a vote of 6 to nothing. So we could entertain the motion to approve 3, we could entertain a motion to approve. So we can entertain a motion to approve just 1, if we're looking for unanimity.
Can I get clarification still on, is this recommendation for them to be approved immediately with a change to the comprehensive plan for them to be getting those funds in the next cycle, which is what, 2024?
Yeah, and that would affect what it would be, right?
Right, this would have us proceed.
That's what you guys are considering, that's what it's for.
Right, these were applications for the change in status, starting with the 2024 cycle. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the applications from Center for Work and Justice, Dream City, and Alexander Homes, and move them along to the next step.
Second.
And we have a second from Becky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed, say aye.
Aye.
That's it, right?
So,
I suppose to editorialize, I mean, I would encourage the next commission, which will look at this again in a year or two, to consider Becky's proposal to write up something a little more settled, that rubric is considered guide.
I have lots of questions, but I'm not going to ask them all tonight.
The recommendation we just approved, I mean, I guess this raises the question, should that, do we need to also vote on a recommendation to council then to raise the funding for 2024 to offset the estimated 4% decrease that's going to happen to all the existing agencies?
I remember the result of that discussion was that we already did encourage the commission to make that recommendation at the time to set the comp, right? There's no consideration of funding for that year anytime soon, right? Wasn't that the status of that?
they're still working on the FY23 budget.
Yeah, the FY23 budget will be approved probably like March, and then next year would be the FY24 budget.
So this is probably something that in about a year, when the recommendation will come through.
Yeah, I would say less than a year.
Okay.
But the scenario does exist where the council takes a recommendation to approve these three new as legacy agencies, but does not approve an increase, which will result in what was estimated a minimum, 4% decrease in funds to all the existing agencies, eight agencies.
With the assumptions of that graph built in, so the same, I think the assumption was that the same number of agencies applied for funding again, and yada yada, right? Everything else held the same. Yeah.
Will we have time at a future meeting to talk about the levels of funding? Because I do not agree with the base 15,000. I just
You don't agree with what?
I don't agree with the minimum should be 15,000. I think there should be some instances where it should be lower. If you go through the legacy agencies, there's some small organizations, because of that $15,000 base limit, they're getting 20 to 23% of their whole budget funding. And larger organizations are, getting a percentage or two. So I think we should really evaluate that. Here's what my memory is about how that happened. And it happened following the state doing that big tax change, tax rollback.
Right.
City budget was strained, with staffing and all sorts of things. And having a minimum amount of funding going to each agency meant that there weren't, 50 agencies, there are 20 agencies getting $2,000 each, but there were 5 agencies getting $15,000. But now, since the legacy agency kind of, those are the only agencies that can apply for this funding. There already is, we're not expanding the number of agencies that the city has to monitor. That was one of the reasons the city was concerned about how much monitoring the staff had to do for these grants, this funding that was handed out. And I just feel strongly that we need to look at, number one, I believe agencies should have fund balances. Some agencies don't have any, some don't have enough, some do have a strong fund balance, and then some have an excess fund balance. And I think we should take a look at that, because I don't think our funds from agencies should be going to an agency that doesn't necessarily need it. So I want to be putting our dollars to work in our community and the kinds of issues that we should be addressing. Housing, food, some of the newer service areas, the youth services and things like that. So I really want to have a discussion about that, lifting that minimum funding level. And just get it on a future agenda, what makes sense, but I have really strong issues about that.
Let's move on to number 6, review timeline for FY23 CDBG home and emerging age agencies funding. Just the staff presentation.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some brief cliff notes. You probably saw the press release go out for the FY23 fund, so pretty much everything we just did, we're starting over again. So the window for this will close the 25th, and then we'll send the applications out to you for review. We will do the staff cover sheets again to give you a summary, and then our February meeting will be a Q&A session. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we did push the March meeting back to the 4th Thursday of the month, so that's going to be March 24th. I'll send a reminder out closer to the time, but just a heads up that we're starting the process all over again.
Sounds straightforward enough.
You guys are pros at this point.
Make sure everybody gets the March meeting issue in your calendar. That's got to stay in your calendar. Number 7, Iowa City Council meeting updates. How do I volunteer for one of them?
I have watched them all, and I don't think there's anything. Because I was thinking about that today. I was going to go back in the agendas and look to see if there's anything that I needed to bring forward. But honestly, I'm pretty good about remembering some of those things. So I don't think there was anything, but I did watch. I watched all the meetings. So.
The only thing I specifically noted was just that Megan was elected mayor pro tem. She's said a few nice things about HCDC. There's nothing that we would maybe call out in terms of our, the issues that we're going to be looking at. We will, I think, have new commissioners soon, that we did not have a new commissioner appointed at the previous meeting, so we still have 2 vacancies.
And those, I looked at the city website, I thought I saw the old date. When are those applications due, do you know?
They're both due February 8th now, so they just re-announced that last vacancy, so February 8th.
So if we could, spread that information.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
But I didn't have anything to update you on other than those things. Let's see, number 8, staff updates.
I have a question first. Why did we get bylaws in our packet?
I only put that in there because we had to elect, a new vice chair, kind of out of step. So.
Are those reviewed on a regular basis?
I feel like we have reviewed them several times, but I don't know that it's anything routine. I don't think we've had any changes since I've been around at
We had
least.
some discussion of the bylaws last year because we had a discussion on whether and how and whether we might be obligated to use Robert's rules. I
Right.
believe the bylaws came up under that discussion. We
That's right.
concluded, I think, that nothing required us to use that.
Right.
But we didn't change anything.
No, we didn't.
There's been a lot of discussion at the city about virtual accessibility to meetings. So have they determined if that's going to spread out to the commission meetings also, or we are okay with not allowing public comment on a virtual level? I mean, look, we have trouble getting our microphones to stop ringing. So
I was going to say, it seems like in this room, either we can have the microphones work or the projector and not both. So I'm going to investigate that. We might have to move locations, but we'll see. I'm not sure about the virtual side of things.
Well, at some point, I do have one recommendation I'd make to the bylaws, but whenever down the road we start to look at those, I know I'll remember it.
We'll turn it to you for the staff update.
I think we've inadvertently covered pretty much everything I was going to mention. February 17th is the next meeting. The 2 vacancies on HCDC, so definitely share that around. The applications are due February 8th, like we said. There's several people on the commission who have terms ending in June, so if anyone wants to reapply, you might check with the clerk's office and make sure you can get your application in time. That's all for me.
All right. Shall we entertain any motion to adjourn?
Not yet, I have one other issue. I would like to have the community needs assessment put on our next agenda to discuss. Possibly we could have the Agency Impact Council make a presentation if we wanted, or at least have somebody here to answer some questions. But I do think a community needs assessment would help us identify service areas and where to really put our money in the kinds of services with the agencies, legacy agencies, and that's what I'd like to see happen.
Gary, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I do, sure.